Test 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. All right, this is a golf professional named Kelly Gibson. He's got a lot of great fundamentals in his golf swing, and I like to use him as a sample, as an example, because he can he can demonstrate a lot of the things that we're trying to teach our golfers to do. All right, first thing I'm going to do is draw some lines so we can get some gauges about where he is. Okay, this is the basic fundamental of golf, and that is alignment. Okay, a lot of people think your feet are supposed to be aimed at your target. Actually, they're actually supposed to be set up almost like a railroad track, where your club and your golf ball are on one line, which out here, and that's your target, and then the other line is the line of your feet, your shoulders, and your hip, which are parallel like a railroad track, but they're not on the same line. Okay, so just make sure that you understand that. That's why a lot of times you'll see pros stick an umbrella on the ground, or an aiming stick on the ground, or something like that where their feet are, and then another one here. So they've got the relationship appropriate. And then you practice that way a while, and your eye starts to set up appropriately. The problem is in the beginning, when you don't know that, or you aren't familiar with how that works, a lot of times people have their feet pointed toward the target. And if that's their target, then you see what happens. They actually end up closed up, and they're actually aimed right of target without even knowing it. Okay, so let me back this up and clear a bunch of this stuff out of here. Okay, all right, again, we want to know where we're aimed, and he's probably aimed out there somewhere, and his feet are aimed out here. Okay, now other things we like to look for, this is something we call the wedge, and what we mean by the wedge is it's an approximation of the guy's swing plane. Okay, now I'm going to get his swing plane, and we're going to draw a line right there through the middle of this thing called the wedge, and that's going to approximate his swing plane. Okay, another thing we want to look at is we want to look at head movement. So we're going to draw a circle around his head, see what goes on with his head. Okay, all right, now as he starts it back, notice how that club goes a little under the wedge, but from here on he's within that shaded area, and look how close his club approximates at that point the swing plane we're looking for. Okay, now here's another great fundamental. At the top of your backswing, oops, got to get the right tool here. Let me back out of that. At the top of your backswing, your club should also approximate the same line. It should be pointed towards your target. If it's pointed over here, it's going to cause you to have misdirected shot. If it's pointed over here, it's going to cause you to have misdirected shots. So at the top of your backswing, that club should be, if somebody's standing behind you looking down your line, that club should be pointed towards your target line. All right, so let me back out of that. Okay, all right, now watch as he starts down again. As he starts down, there he is. He's right back on that. That's what, if you've ever heard somebody say swinging on plane, that's what we mean by swinging on plane, because he took the club back. He's pretty much on plane here. He's starting his downswing. He's pretty much on plane. Now watch what happens as he releases through the ball. There he is. He's almost on plane again. See, that's what we call swinging on plane. And the more you do that, the less side spin you impart to the golf ball. By side spin, hook, slice, that kind of thing. The more that golf club stays on plane and swings directly through the golf ball towards your target, the more likely that ball is not going to hook or slice. Okay? Now, notice as he swings back, notice how his head stays right in that circle. Okay? Because of that, the relationship between him and that golf ball stays the same throughout his swing. It does not change. And because of that, he can depend on the consistency of impact with the golf ball, similar to the way he had it at address. That's what we're after. That's what we're trying to do. Lots and lots of beginner golfers have all kinds of head movement issues. And that doesn't mean you have to keep your head absolutely still, because when I show you from the other side, you'll see that he moves his head some. But as he starts his downswing, he's going to be right back where he started, and you'll see what I mean when I get on that other side. Another thing I want you to notice here, all right, at the top of his backswing, he's moved his weight. You can see, if you're looking carefully, you can see that most of his weight's moved over here, okay? Now watch what happens as he starts to swing down through. From this moment on, look at how his weight is shifting from his right to his left. See how his right foot's coming off the ground? That's not because he's pushing off with his toe. That's because his momentum is moving him to his left side. And it impacts. See, look how much weight shift has already happened, and he hasn't even impacted the ball yet. And look, he's still the same distance from the golf ball he was at address. Okay? He accelerates the club on through, makes a good follow-through, finishes with almost all of his weight over here on his left foot, almost none on his right. Okay, that's what we like to see. That's ideal from that angle. All right, so let me clear all this stuff out, and let me go find Kelly from the other angle. Okay, same thing. Okay, this is what his golf swing looks like. All right, now let's go back and watch him hit the golf ball, and we'll do the same fundamentals that we did before. Okay, so we're going to go back to his address position. All right, we're going to draw a circle around his head because we want to watch for head movement again. Okay, now the ideal thing that we look for at address is this beautiful, what we call triangle. Okay, and he's a right-handed golfer, and that triangle is always going to be pitched a little upward, as you see right here. And the reason is, in the first place, when you're hitting a driver, the driver is the one club in the bag that the lowest point of your swing comes in right here. And then as you accelerate through the ball, you accelerate in an upward motion. Okay? And so you usually have a little upward tilt to your shoulders on the driver. And that's partly because you created it, but it's also partly because your left hand here is above your right hand. And so the right's going to be below the left if you're a right-handed golfer. Left-handed golfer would be opposite, okay? All right, now, another thing we like to see is the width of his stance. Let's get a different color here, okay? Notice how the outside of his shoulder is inside of his foot. The outside of his shoulder is inside of his foot. So if you ever hear somebody say, what is a shoulder width stance, or you need a shoulder width stance, what we mean is that. We mean the inside of your feet even with the outside of your shoulders. And that way what you've got is a good, stable base from which your golf swing can happen. Okay, now watch as he takes it back. Look at what happens. You don't see him rolling his wrists open. You don't see him rolling that club face wide open. You see that club going back, and it's rotating open as the club gets further from the golf ball. And as he turns his body back, notice how he's getting a big body turn. This is not just a swing of his arms. This is a swing of his body. This is where you get your power from. You don't get power just from arms. To get power and hit it 300 yards or 250 yards or whatever distance you want to hit it, you've got to get everything you've got into it. Your hips, your shoulders, your back, a good wrist release. And it all has to be timed right. All right, so now let's watch what happens. Notice he's got a little bit of lateral, in other words, side movement. See how his head's moved that way a little bit? Now watch what happens as he starts down. He's just about to the top of his backswing, and now he's starting down, and look where his head is. It's right back where it was to start with. Okay? Now notice, this is another thing a lot of beginners have trouble with, but it's something that you have to develop or you're never going to get to be the golfer you're capable of. Notice how he starts his golf swing down, and he's holding that wrist release. Okay, he's holding it. He's holding it. He's got a nice firm. See that nice straight left arm? This is something we love to see at the top of the backswing. We love to see that angle, and that's perfect. And ideally, the best players in the world, they hold that angle all the way down to here. Look at that. He hasn't even released his wrists yet, and watch this, he is 1, 2 frames from the golf ball. And that's 30 frames a second. So he's 2 frames from the golf ball, and his wrist release hadn't happened yet. So in other words, what are we trying to do? We're trying to delay that release, and what that does for you is that allows, now notice, you can see his weight is shifting. Oops, wrong tool. Let me back out of that. Okay. You can see his weight is shifting. He's moving his weight from his right to his left. You can see he's turning his back, he's turning his shoulders, his wrists are releasing, everything's happening. In other words, whatever power this guy is capable of imparting to the back of that golf ball and through that golf ball to drive it out towards his target, he's got all of it ready to release at the same time. And bang, it's going to hit the back of that golf ball, and out goes the golf ball. And then notice how he just uncoils. His swing just finishes. I mean, he's not forcing it at this point. At this point, he's just finishing the swing he started from the top. Okay, and look at that beautiful finish. Nice straight spine angle. Almost all of his weight off of his right foot. He could probably lift his right foot off the ground. Okay, that's what we want to see in a good golf swing.